Does this still work? Yeah? Good? Online can hear me? Everyone can hear me? What's up? What is going on? About 10 years ago, I was in a room just like this, almost exactly like it, before I pivoted my 10-year career other places into 10 years in multiple companies that all of you know started in a room just like this one. And that's working, but this doesn't work. Oh my Lord. By the way, if you went to MDev, one of those people was speaking there as well. Cool. I'm Kevin Treski, a senior manager for digital product at Wizards of the Coast. I've been asked by Wolfjam Studios to come and speak to you today about how I got into the games industry. The following are my personal opinions about my work experience, and these opinions will change, guaranteed. That's the only way that we can grow as people and in our career and outside of it, is these things have to change. They're great agents of change. Ben Cavallo is an amazing agent of change, transforming the landscape of games in the Midwest. You guys, everyone in this room, will probably do that as well sometime if you leave here as jazzed as I am. And I forgot my glasses, so let's do one of these. Okay. I'm making the assumption that most of you are software engineers wanting to get into games development. This talk definitely is for everyone, all these disciplines, whether you're in or outside of it, whether you're looking to make a change. It still applies, but some of the examples are going to be kind of geared towards that. It's the best I can do to leave you with any semblance of words of wisdom from the following slides. So in 2014, I made the decision to move into the gaming industry from corporate business development. Who here is from corporate business development? Hey, yes, yeah. Give it up for Wolfjam Tom. Making it happen. We need people like that. That's awesome. Corp Dev gave me the practice of diving into new subject matter, new verticals, new businesses, identifying how they work or how they don't. But first things first, to be able to pivot my career, I needed to dive headfirst to prove to myself and everyone around me in the wonderful industry I wanted to get into that I was here to stay. For Meetup and general internet searches, I found groups dedicated to actually building games. Very similar to what you're doing now was my first step in this whole process. No one gave me an invitation. When I showed up, no one said, Kevin, thank God you're here. Which is a hard lesson for some people that are waiting for an invitation for their dream career. In my first meetup in 2014, people could not care less that I worked for a large Fortune 100 company and worked on a lot of the products that were in their own apartments and houses that day. I was in a room full of people that knew each other really well, and no one wanted to talk to me at all. Zero. That meetup had a great host, Kyle Bailey. If you're listening, I love you. Who still runs that group today. The Chicago Game Dev Industry Night Group, sat me down to a table and introduced me to everyone there. As a side note, one of those people, one of the first 3 people I've met in the small Chicago video game industry that is now quite large, is Billy Basso, who just made Animal Well for Video Game Donkey's Big Mode publisher. Ended up working with him for multiple years. Awesome dude, super cool. Like Ben was saying, a lot of people in this room that you don't know today, you might know very soon, you might work with, you might start whole new things with, and you're definitely going to champion their wins as well as they will champion yours for the next year or 10 years from now. Momentum is a big key component. Even though no one wanted to talk to me and I was sitting off in a corner, I had to keep coming back again and again to meet dozens of people to prove that I was worthy to talk to. And about 3 months in, people were starting to say, thank God you're here. And that was great. And I went to as many things as I possibly could. Oh, I am not advancing these slides. There's some Discords and some IRL groups. Now I've caught up. And on top of that, I attended and volunteered everywhere I could at grassroots conventions. I attended technical trainings. I even started my own group that helped showcase local games that needed testing in an audience. We would take a laptop, a bunch of indie games made from the community, went out to a bar on a slow night, plugged it into a HDMI to the TV, ended up showcasing dozens of games over the course of years. And we had a few beers along the way. For the games industry, I signed myself up to try almost everything I possibly could and took every single opportunity. Being that I was an average college kid working retail, I looked for the thing to get me out of the rut as much as I possibly could, and was fortunate enough to spend a year at Walt Disney World as an intern, which is a very interesting experience. That experience, along with friends already in the Sony retail program, got me to do that for Sony, representing them in retail in Orange County, California. So I went from Chicago to Florida to Orange County. That experience got me into the door at Sony headquarters in San Diego, in which I had a variety of titles and did a lot of things there in that wonderful structure. But I left there as the senior member of one of the senior members of the corporate business development team. Go Tom. In 2014, 10 years later, I returned to Chicago. Anyone here from Chicago? Yes. Amazing. I will talk to you later. Going to as many industry events as I could. I started a nonprofit, which gave me great experience building something from scratch, a business or a brand. Even though it was so small, you still had to do one of everything. So you got a lot of different experience just making something. To try to bring business acumen that I learned from Sony to indie devs trying to get out into the world. Well, at Play on Chicago, I learned more about where that data came from that I was so used to having and using and taking for granted. So I wanted to learn more about where that data could come from and how I could build my own. I learned SQL, I learned Python. All that culminated into landing the job as the first data person at NetherRealm Studios. They make Mortal Kombat, Injustice, you might have heard of them. It was a great time there. Wanting to leverage that data in bigger and better ways, I got into product management, which also leveraged my multidisciplinary work experience, being able to translate technical to non-technical, being able to look at a contract, being able to understand a go-to-market plan, blah, 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 blah. I brought all that to Wizards of the Coast roughly 5 years ago. I've been in the business 10 years, not a few, Kelly. I'm just kidding. Brought all that experience to Wizards of the Coast to continue building better data pipelines for games and build a build, measure, learn process of like how we take that early data and make early big wins out of small wins. I've worked in and out of games on the development and publishing sides of the business. And since that's what it is, a business, there are a ton of things each of you are already doing, if you are working, that are directly transferable to any vertical that you are going to work in, whether you want to or you're planning to in the future. When you get your next job, no matter how different it is from the last job, there's still things that you'll bring with you. No one has to reteach you how to type. No one has to reteach you how to use email. There's always things that you're bringing from one thing to another. And just like moving into a new industry or a vertical like games, foundational best practices are key when entering someone else's domain. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those key things and how to get experience or leverage the experience that you already have in a very high-level way. Remember that when you're brought onto a project, whether it's games or something else, you're brought on a project to do a thing for someone so they don't have to worry about it. They are paying you to do a thing. If that thing isn't complete, it's a big deal. You show this by not giving up when it gets tough. If you have to pivot, be honest about why, and know that what you'll need to do next time around so you don't have to. This is how you move from having opinions to actual expertise. And talked a lot about failures. And like failing like teaches you a lot of stuff. It's not just the failure, it's the failure and sticking around. A lot of people do not understand this, and when the going gets tough, they're just like, oh, I'll try again next time. Living with your mistakes and talking to someone has seen you have that mistake in a way is where real growth comes from. When you are working on your jam stuff this weekend and something gets hard, you can pivot because you have to release something at the end of the weekend. But just because you have to does not mean that you shouldn't. You have to be able to say, I don't think this is working. I think this might be a more achievable route. It sucks we couldn't do that thing. I want us to be able to make something that people can actually see and use, given our timeline, deadlines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whether you work in insurance today, whether you're completing a work project in college, whatever it is, it's the same skills. It's the same thing. So don't be intimidated with any other kind of big 3 to 6 year video game project. There's still 2-week sprints. It's still one thing at a time. So trust in that. In your resume or portfolio, plainly talk about challenges and changes, that compromises that led you to become, to be able to complete your thing. Show examples in your documentation that you will write, because that's what will get you hired. And I have a lot of laughs from this side of the room that proves my point. Where am I? Show examples of your documentation, both in code and in documentation that will end up on an internal wiki like Confluence or something else like that, Notion, whatever you guys are using these days. When you write your docs, take a moment up front to tell the reader why this thing had to be built, what it needs to plug into, and why that is. Those are crucial components, because if you just hand someone a 200-page babbly document with no context up front, they do not know what they are looking at and will stop reading it, limiting the value of all the time you put in there to write it in the first place. I don't know why I'm dancing, but you're welcome. When you write your docs, blah, 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 where am I at? When I personally evaluate candidates that don't do software like UX candidates, right, for UX design, they're always quick to show me the pictures in their portfolio. I always end up reading the actual written stuff of like, hey, this is our process. This is why we chose that process. We wanted to do this thing, but we just couldn't. We didn't have money. We didn't have time. So we did this thing instead. That's always the stuff that I'm like, oh, this person knows what's up. You're not going to get everything that you want. And that's huge. The thing is done, not just a demo, but like really done. Show off your tests to prove that it works. This is mostly for the software engineer people, but it can apply to art pipelines or anything else you want to do with shaders, like whatever it is, netcode. Unit, load, penetration, smoke, and other tests should be known, built, and used. They will get you farther than the thing itself in most cases. So when you do a real-time code interview, I have seen this so many times. We bring someone in from college or from some other place. We sit them down in front of CoderPad. We're going to have do something on the whiteboard. And we say, every time, feel free to choose whatever language you want. You know what always happens? They always choose the language they think that we like to use. We can teach languages. If you know one, you can learn another one. It's really about breaking that down, being comfortable. You only have 45 minutes to an hour with us. You don't want to waste it. You want to do something where you know you're comfortable, build that confidence in the room, and that will get you really, really far. Humility. This is one I still work on every single day. When you're hired somewhere, you'll most likely be given someone else's thing to improve or work on. They're not going to be like, oh, here's the keys to the kingdom. Please shower us with your opinions. That does not happen. Here, this weekend, very, very possible. Very awesome. Very cool. You want to be a hobbyist? You want to start your own thing? Awesome. Super cool. You're in charge. I hope you like it. When you show up and you sit down, you're going to be given someone else's thing to work on. You're most likely not going to be the boss, own strategy, pick options, or anything like that. If you don't work professionally in that space yet, I have a few recommendations. So like if you're not in games, basically, and you're trying to like establish your thing in games, put on someone else's thing pull code down from GitHub, a data project from Kaggle, designs from Dribble, like whatever it is. Make a plan to change it and start with something small. I took this thing, I want to appropriate this thing with this. I want to change a color on a design. I want to X the drop shadows out of it because it's passe. I want this API to work this way instead of that way, but everything else, 99% of it's going to stay the same. Write down what you're aiming to change, why in a professional tone you can do, like as professional as you can be, not like you're talking to a college buddy, like a real change document. Make some assumptions about why someone would ask you to make that change to show that you can think about how your work will affect others. Make, test, document, and release that change out into the wild with respect to its original owner. Add it to your portfolio. The documentation, the goal, what you did, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to show that you can actually stick with something, push it back to the world, and survive comments, of which you will get many. And not all of them are going to be nice. I hope you get used to it. I deal with it every hour of every day. When you do get the opportunity to talk to someone, don't be afraid to ask questions, but please believe what they tell you and believe their answers. I had a ton of questions when I entered the games for everything. I would limit myself to 2 or 3 per instance because my backlog of questions was like 350. Why is everyone so worried about submit instead of launch? What is a vertical slice? Who's in charge, the creative game director or executive producer? It depends on who you ask. When moving into a new vertical, a lot of things and answers are not going to make sense. The first couple of times someone told me about vertical slice, I was like, sure. Yeah, I get it. I didn't get it. If that ends up being the case, maybe try to ask things like, what do I need to know about a vertical slice? What should I do to ensure you have a good vertical slice? That will start connecting your work to the bigger picture. Bigger pictures. As mentioned, your work will be slotted into someone else's thing. You're going to have multiple internal customers, like your immediate boss and whoever ends up using your work. You build a graphics pipeline, artists are going to use it. You build a cinematic pipeline, the cinematics team is going to use it. You build some type of audio effect thing for echoes and caves that have moss instead of grass, whatever reason, some other team is going to use it. Setting aside time to ask your customer, because you're building a product, even if it's 10 lines of code, that's a product. Setting aside time to talk to your customer about why they need the thing and what larger picture it needs to fit into will save yourself a ton of time and effort in the long run. Also keep in mind that even if you disagree with what they say, you're gonna have to do it anyway. And they're still the customer and they still need to be happy. And this is about living with these choices and growing. I had to do many reps about this, especially in my early part of my career. If you're in the middle of a mid or low level project and your boss gives you something to do, make sure you ask if it should take priority. Interrupts usually do. Sometimes people are just like, oh yeah, I'll take care of that when I'm done with this thing and blah, 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 and be like, he interrupted you for a reason, or she, or they, or anybody that comes to you saying something that is above your pay grade, which will be everybody. When you're working on an ask, you have a better or tangential idea, make sure you do the thing that was asked of you first. Don't do that thing, do something else, and you're like, oh, I thought this was better. That is a sure way to put you at the bottom of the list. What you do instead is you do the thing as asked, what was written on the tin, you present it all the way that it was intended for their process and what they asked for. Then, if you have comments, because you're doing it, you're in flow, you may put what I call PS slides or a PS on that presentation. It's like, here's your thing, the PS. If you're asking me what I think you're asking because of this thing over there, or because that guy is paranoid about that deliverable or whatever it is, you might want to consider this other thing that I could probably sketch out for you in the next sprint, or blah, 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 blah. But in the meantime, you have the thing that you asked for early, hopefully, with some comments on how to improve it, scale it, do whatever you want. And I believe with that, I really hope this short summary was helpful to at least some of you. I want to thank Wolfjam so much for creating this amazing event, for having me over. I will do some Q&A. Please use the mic so people online know what you're saying, because there's more people than just this room. In fact, a lot of them are right out there, and they probably want to know as well. And P.S., I agree with everything Ben Cavallo said. Being from Chicago, working in Chicago game dev in the Midwest, his talk was amazing as well. Please have an amazing weekend, and thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor to Q&A. And for those of you online, post your questions in the Discord chat.
Oh, let me also put this up as well.
Again, my name's Gabriel.
One sec. One sec. Let's just remind everyone a few things.
Right. Okay. So take everything with a grain of salt.
A bucket.
A bucket. Okay. Okay. Cool.
What's up?
Hi, my name's Gabriel. So I'm a fan of Magic, and you gave us your entire history. You started in various places. You even started in the games industry. So specifically, when transitioning to a project like Magic, which is a very complicated game, and I can only imagine on the digital side, I have no idea how they make like the digital versions.
Me either.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well,
Shoot your shot.
how do you tackle something as big as that? More on like the mental side of it, like when something seems overbearing, but you still gotta do it. Like, how do you handle something like that?
So it's a great question. Something that's very large, that's been around for decades. They have layers and layers of different expectations from inside and outside the building. That is huge. How do you work with someone like that, or some people like that, or some teams like that, or some businesses like that? One, like I said earlier, holy.
Wow.
Done.
Yeah, whoever did, yeah, 100%. One, I'm working on someone else's thing. There are wonderful, amazing people that love Magic more than anyone could possibly imagine in that building. Are we okay, Kev? Okay. There we go. Are we okay now? Okay, you sure? Okay. It's someone else's thing, right? These people are more caring, considerate, passionate about everything that game has to be for so many people. I'm a guest in their house. So if I'm working on the user login flow, I'm working on what data we collect and why. I'm working on the direct challenge technical process through our SDKs or something else like that. I do the thing. They ask me for a thing, I do the thing, and I say, P.S., I don't know if you know this, but there's a team over here, or there's this new paradigm or something else like that that you might want to consider adding to your flow or incorporating in your pipeline. But at the end of the day, I'm not responsible. If that thing, that large thing that people love, the last thing that team needs is another cook in the kitchen. I can bring my expertise and I can say, this is what I think. But at the end of the day, I don't own their timeline. I can't say, you know what, delay the release of the next set because I just kind of want to do some stuff. I'm a guest in their house and I have to be respectful, but I also have to think about my job too. So when they need something from me, I explain to them why I care about my things. They're a guest in my house, and that's how we work together. Small, trusting, short, deliverable wins are the best way to move that forward. And just with respect to things like Magic or Mortal Kombat or D&D or any of the wonderful 300 SKUs a year Sony businesses that I used to work with. You're a guest in their house. Is that cool? Great. Who's next?
Hey, my name's Corey.
Hi, Corey.
I was just curious. You talked a lot about how, you communicate with people that are above you and how you have to release a product. Well, how do you go about people that are on the same level, cohorts and peers that are on your team, and sort of making sure that everything is on the same page and that everybody is happy with the product that you're working on?
That is a 5-hour answer. The best thing I would say is early on, draw kind of distinct lines about what they think they own and are responsible for, and what you think you own and are responsible for. If there is an overlap, that is a problem. If there is something that you both agree, oh, I thought you were doing this. Oh, I thought you were doing this. That is super, super helpful to identify early on. If neither of you have the expertise, just go beg, borrow, or steal someone's time. And when or if they give you advice, take it. So many times, like, you go up to someone else and you're just like, hey, how'd you do this thing? What did you do here? Blah, 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 blah. That context, that environment is past. It's different. It's not this one. However, they're going to use all that expertise and they're going to be like, I recommend that you do this. And you know what's not going to get you invited back to ask more questions is being like, yeah, I don't believe it. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks, Corey. This side is like, I don't like you, whatever. Am I looking
Right
at
here,
this
right
side
here.
more? I don't understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We got it. Yeah.
So, hi, my name is Margaret,
Hi, Margaret.
and I have about 3 years of professional quality assurance experience.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I didn't realize that was a thing you could create a portfolio for until recently, and I unfortunately got rid of like most of my screenshots from my work. So how would I go about creating a portfolio if I unfortunately don't have much evidence to show? Or do I need to like start from scratch and try to gain even more experience?
You can do a couple of things. And these are guesses. You could try to mock something up, because 9 times out of 10, you might not be allowed to show that thing because it's broken.
A lot of my stuff is confidential.
Yes, she's saying a lot of her stuff was confidential to the chat. Yeah, so what you can do is you can either take a screenshot and blur it, and when you blur it, save it as in take a screen crop of it, so no one can like back into it, whatever, and then that should be okay. Talk to your producers about like how to best show it, like who you have to talk to. Sometimes they'll just be like, oh, what do we care? Like, everyone goes through this, it's fine. You can mock it up and being like, oh, this is what we did. You can use numbers of saying like, I did 1 critical bug and 3 low-level bugs a week. You can work on someone else's thing. You're here. You're going to build something. It's probably going to need some semblance of a QA pass if you have time. I don't know. But if it does, outline a plan. Just be like, hey, for this 3-day project, we didn't have a lot of time, but we knew we wanted to win that prize at the end, whatever the prize is. I'm sure it's great. You might want to say like, hey, like this is the plan. At bare minimum, we're going to have an hour to do QA. I'm in charge. I'm going to break this up. And you just write that down. That's another good way to do it as well. Does that help? Cool. Next.
Yes, hi.
Oh, no.
So first of all, compliment. You have a great personality. You're very
Says you.
extroverted,
Uh-huh.
right? However, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room who are very passionate, just as you are, but very introverted as
Yes,
well.
I deal with them all the time. I love introverts. Yes.
So what kind of advice do you have for such people to help them succeed on their path?
That's a great question. You are a reporter, right?
Yes.
Did you already take a photo of this?
No, I did not.
Okay. At any rate, no, all jokes aside, right? All jokes aside, you will have to present your work. In this industry, there is a high chance there will be an introvert reporting. Guess what? To another introvert. Don't be scared. So when you are doing that, like you're gonna have to get reps in. It's gonna suck. But at the end of the day, you want someone to use your thing. Like that is your goal. This is a tool. Being able to speak to something, even like in a very time-boxed, formatted place that makes you feel safe, like or something else like that. Working it with your manager. Be like, hey, I'm gonna need some time, and I'm gonna need some reps to make sure that you feel confident in my work. Can you give me just like a form or something, or like a framework that I can just stick to? That usually helps quite a bit, but there's a lot of strategies to do that. The problem usually ends up being a problem, not the problem. A problem ends up being that in a game studio in real life, not online, like not remotely, like everyone's just running around. And everyone's just like getting from point A to point B as fast as they can. There's little bits of time to do little bits of thing. And unfortunately, people that don't speak up sometimes get railroaded. So it's about, I think the industry is doing a lot better job of scheduling one-on-ones, keeping those one-on-ones, even when things like go bad or whatever, or something else like that. But I would stick to a framework and I'd make it very simple and just build from there of like, what, if anything, do you need me to tell you about this thing? Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
As you had shown, you have a very wide skill set, technical, not. I was just wondering, how do you, in a professional environment, keep your skill set up to date as you're
It will never be up to date. Your skill set starts atrophying. Day two. It's a good question. What you end up learning, in my opinion, what you end up learning is how to break apart whatever new thing into why it matters. So if you're moving a code base from Flutter to React Native, if you're using the latest version of Unity or PBR or whatever, some feature or something other than that, like once you get enough reps in, this kind of goes back to that coder pad kind of example, where if you can break apart a problem into small pieces, whether that is a marketing problem, an engineering problem, a production problem, a fundraising problem, that's really where it comes from. And I think learning new languages and new skills are ways to strengthen that muscle. One thing that Corp Dev gave me when I was at Sony was every 3 days, it was a new industry, a new opportunity, a new problem, a new market. And so you got really, really good at finding out like what are the main 3 things I'm looking for when I'm reading through like 1,000-page reports. So coming here also, like let's say you work in the game industry today, and your project is in some old version of Unreal that the EP doesn't want to get rid of for whatever reason, right? And you want to learn the new stuff, whatever. You're great. Use this to do it. Bring it to work. Being like, hey, just so you know, like I did this thing. It was a lot easier because of this reasons. Here's some screenshots. Here's the coder pad. Like, that's a good way to go. If you are learning a new skill, like you're going from software engineering to social media marketing, the best way to learn is usually like read up a little bit, know your keywords, know why these things matter, know your KPIs. I do not care if you are a business person or not. You will have a number you are trying to hit somewhere, whether that's least amount of bugs, time to release, whatever that is. Knowing those levers, the vernacular, is most important. But don't think reading 10 books is going to get you there. Read like half of one, skim it, and then like go and sit down with someone who will like give you their time that really, really kind of does it. And that might be an associate low-level person that you can get because the senior director is busy. But just sit down with them and like buy them a beer or coffee or whatever and just be like, I'm reading this thing, I'm interested in it. It seems like this is a big deal. Do you find this to be a big deal? And then believe them when they tell you things. That doesn't mean you can't ask anybody else and get other opinions, but usually that real world experience is literally right in front of all of us. Does that help? Ish? The question was, what is a KPI? A KPI is dumb business talk for, I use all the time and I love it, for key performance indicator. It is usually a business metric. It could be a non-business metric. It is whatever number you want to see go up and to the right. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Who's got the mic?
Yeah, me. So when it comes to networking,
Where are you?
right.
Oh, okay.
So when it comes to networking, how important do you think we should consider ourselves with for LinkedIn and such like digital sort of like identity between us to the industry and the recruiters?
So I think everyone's gonna. So I think everyone is gonna be wherever you're comfortable being. I am old. I do not social media very well. I do this, and I sit in a room and I yell and scream. That's what I do. So when I go to do things for like networking and stuff like that, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. When I'm on Discords or I'm on Slacks or I'm on like some community thing, I'm usually trying to desperately find the real world event. Someone in this room might say, in a Discord or something else like that, like, oh, who else wants to start a guild to play this game because they feel more comfortable in guild chat, if that's still a thing these days. I don't know. So like, I would just say, like, don't try to put yourself in someone else's box, because you're going to get there slower and you're not going to feel good about it, most likely. You can build those skills. I think we have a wonderful speaker tomorrow that is going to talk about that. So your questions should be answered in spades tomorrow. I think you gotta wait for the mic. What? Yes. What's up? Hey, real quick, how long do I have up here before I gotta go?
I was gonna get 2 more questions and then I'll wrap up for you. So if that works for you.
It's phenomenal. Okay. And then I'll be, once the opening ceremonies are done, I'll be somewhere, somehow.
So my question is, do you consider being able to work in a team and facilitate teamwork as a uber important skill that you need to get into any of these verticals, or is it something that can be mitigated easily?
My opinion is that when you start out anywhere, you will be a part of a team. There are certain positions in companies, normally they're called principal positions, that are kind of like really grizzled senior one-person armies that can like jump in front of enemy lines and like figure something out. So when the rest of the team catches up, there's already kind of like groundwork done, like an advanced team, but that's like a senior position. So being able to, even if it's working by yourself, just doing JIRA tickets, little things here, little things there, like, you still have to, this gentleman was talking about presenting your work, like as an introvert. Someone is still asking you for something, and you'll have to work with that person and make that person happy to some degree. So there's a lot of different levels of team building. There is knowing that you're a member of a larger thing and you guys all want to succeed together, but you all have different opportunities and opinions about how that should work. And then there's there's like a team, like literally 4 people in a small closet somewhere that are like just chugging along, and like they know everything about each other because they're in that space. So it's like there's elements of this everywhere. And so building, either if you're building a team or participating in a team or anything else like that, know that there's only room for so many cooks in so many kitchens. That's only going to come with like experience, sadly. But if you've ever been on a basketball team or a golf team or done anything as a actors troupe or whatever, there's a director, there's a coach, there's on the ship, there's the captain, and then there's the first mate and everything else down from there. Like, you will work with somebody. And it's kind of up to you when it is, of what that team looks like and acts. And it's definitely in places like this is a great way, because it's 3 days. You come out with something and you're like, well, I don't like that. or the reverse, right? People are going to fit into their own things. There's certain games that we would not have today if we forced that solo dev to like be chained to somebody else. Those are rare, but they're out there. Building a team and building trust in what you're delivering to someone is huge. Does that answer your question a little bit? Okay. Kelly?
All right. Okay. So we're going back to KPIs, key performance indicators, metrics, for anyone who might want to know what that is. What is a good KPI for these students to set for themselves during this hackathon, and how might they best represent that on their resumes in the future?
Wow. That's a great question.
Put me on the spot.
But that is, wow. Wowie zow. I would say a good KPI is if you're, whatever type of genre you're exploring, Mario's got to run from the left side to the right side. Can he actually run from the left side to the right side? There has to be a score. Is there a score? A really, really good KPI to know beyond this as well, when you start building your own stuff, you start showing it in like little like game dev clubs and stuff like that, or elsewhere, is does anyone ask to play my game again? That is huge. If someone plays your game and just kind of said, thanks, you know, like, that doesn't mean they didn't like it. There's a ton of other things running around. Like, you have a ton of competition for that. Like, if you actually keep score and you have a little notepad next to your demo station and you say how many people played it, how many people asked to play it again, or, you know, whether it's right then and there or like an hour later, like that conversion rate, for another dumb industry term, it's not dumb, it's really important, I really like it, is huge. And being able to know that number, being able to have that number in your hand, being able to prove it when someone asks, even if it's terrible, is huge. Because let's say your conversion rate on retention or return plays is 1%. Guess what your goal is for Game Jam 2025? 2%. It is a 100%, 2x increase in engagement, replayability, and retention. That is what you put on your resume. I would like to reiterate that these opinions are my own. I understand that I'm an extremely loud character, but I do thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Let's give both of our speakers another big round of applause and thank them for coming here tonight.